Have you ever felt torn between following the path that everyone expects of you or listening to the voice of your heart? This is one of those choices that can change everything in our lives. Matteo always carried the weight of his family's expectations, but it was amidst this pressure that he discovered the power of a passion that defied all the rules. And it's about this courageous choice, between tradition and true love, that we're going to talk about today. Get ready for a story where love becomes the force that transforms lives and breaks down barriers. Let's go. The sun was beginning to set behind the hills of Tuscany, painting the sky with shades of orange and gold, while vineyards stretched as far as the eye could see. In the small town of San Giovese, known for its charm and centuries-old traditions, everything seemed calm, except for the restless soul of Matteo Rosso, the heir to a traditional family that had ruled the town for generations. Matteo, dressed in an impeccable suit, was watching the town from his terrace, where the wind carried the gentle aroma of the ripe vines. He could see the village, the people strolling through the cobblestone streets, and in the background, his family's imposing mansion full of history. Matteo didn't want to be there. He bore the weight of inherited responsibilities and a predestined future, including an arranged marriage with Sofia, a woman from an influential family. But that afternoon, everything changed. As he drove his car through the narrow streets of the town, something, or rather someone, caught his attention. On the corner of Piazza Centrale, there she was, Lucia Bianchi. Lucia had an air of lightness and carefree spirit, a soul free from any pressure. Her brown hair danced with the wind, and her light blue dress swayed as her firm steps echoed on the square stones. There was an aura of freedom in her movements, as if she didn't belong to that place, and that fascinated Matteo. Lucia was a tourist, from Naples, seeking a break from her hectic city routine. When Matteo saw her, something inside him awoke. He had never felt the need to stop for someone before, but this was the exception. Without thinking, Matteo ordered the driver to stop the car. Matteo got out of the car, drawing the attention of passers-by. He didn't know why, but he needed to talk to her. He approached with firm steps, but when Lucia turned her face and their eyes met, he lost his breath. There was a connection there that Matteo couldn't understand, but it was so intense that it made him question everything he believed about his future. "Excuse me, I don't usually do this, but I need to know your name," said Matteo, breaking the silence. Lucia, surprised, frowned and looked at him with suspicion. "And why is that important?" she replied, her tone carrying a Neapolitan accent. Matteo smiled, noticing the strength that emanated from this woman. Something in the firmness of her voice intrigued him even more. Without arrogance, he introduced himself, trying in every way to show his genuine intentions. After a brief and cautious conversation, Lucia revealed her name, and Matteo promised to leave her alone. But before she could take another step, Matteo invited her to dinner at his house. Lucia immediately refused, questioning his authority and his intentions. Matteo, with an air of sadness and sincerity, confessed that he only wanted a moment to talk and forget his complicated life for a few hours. Something in the honesty of this stranger touched her, and Lucia accepted the invitation with one condition: he couldn't try to change who she was. That evening, Matteo's mansion was illuminated by candlelight, which reflected off the antique furniture and stone walls, giving the place an air of majesty and mystery. Lucia, mesmerized by the architecture, tried to hide her enchantment, but Matteo noticed and smiled discreetly. He was used to seeing people impressed by his family's wealth, but there was something in Lucia's reaction that seemed deeper, as if she appreciated every detail with a touch of nostalgia. During dinner, they talked about their lives, and Matteo revealed that his future was already determined by an arranged marriage. Lucia, however, looked at him seriously and asked a simple but powerful question. "And what do you want, Matteo?" The question made Matteo pause. He had never thought about it because he always believed that his desires didn't matter. That was his responsibility, his duty. But Lucia's words echoed in his mind, and he began to question everything he had accepted as certain. Despite Lucia's initial resistance, which was natural since she had never seen this man before, after the first dinner and their conversation, she began to feel attracted to this handsome man who had unexpectedly taken an interest in her. As days passed, Matteo and Lucia began meeting more often and in secret. She became his escape from reality, an opportunity to experience what it meant to live without the chains of others' expectations. Soon an uncontrollable passion arose between them, and they could no longer resist the desire between their bodies, and she surrendered to it with a burning flame of passion. Their meetings grew increasingly intense, with many kisses and reciprocated desires. Matteo began to realize that those secret nights brought a sense of freedom and purpose that he had never experienced in his controlled life. One of those nights, Matteo arrived before Lucia. He was restless, his heart beating faster than usual. When she finally appeared, Matteo couldn't help but smile. Without saying anything, Lucia sat next to him, and for a few minutes, they both remained silent, watching the gentle glow of the stars. Lucia finally broke the silence with a question that had been echoing in Matteo's mind for days. "Matteo, why do you keep coming here?" she asked, not looking at him, as if trying to hide the vulnerability in her voice. Matteo sighed, looking at the horizon. "Because with you, I can be myself, without masks, without obligations. It's like you're the only part of my life that I really chose." Lucia smiled softly, and her eyes reflected the same moon that Matteo admired so much. Each night, he found himself more involved, and the pressure of his responsibilities seemed to fade while he was by her side. Lucia made him question all the traditions he had accepted without hesitation. More than ever, Matteo found himself longing for a future he could choose. Lucia touched Matteo's hand and whispered, "You have a path ahead of you, Matteo, and the power to decide where it leads." Those words lingered in Matteo's mind, like a constant melody he couldn't get out of his head. He knew he was falling in love with her. Lucia was his escape, but above all, she was the embodiment of the life he wanted to live, free, passionate, and unbound. However, that fragile world Matteo was building with Lucia was abruptly shattered with Sofia's arrival in town. It was a cold morning when Sofia appeared unexpectedly at Matteo's house, accompanied by her father. The visit wasn't planned, but tradition didn't need an invitation. Matteo was in the garden when he saw his fiancée's luxurious car entering through the gates. A tightness gripped his chest, as if the past and future collided all at once. He knew that Sofia's arrival marked the end of his secret meetings and the beginning of an inevitable decision. "Matteo dear, I hope this surprise didn't bother you," said Sofia with a smile that seemed rehearsed as she stepped out of the car. Matteo, unable to hide his unease, forced a polite smile. "Sofia, of course not. I just wasn't expecting your visit so soon." But deep down, Matteo knew that something was about to change and that he would have to face the dilemma he had been postponing, the duty to honor his family or the desire to follow his heart alongside Lucia. However, the unexpected arrival of Sofia, Matteo's arranged fiancée, brought tension to the growing relationship kept in secret. Sofia soon noticed the closeness between Matteo and Lucia, as she occasionally saw them talking on the streets of the small town and felt betrayed and challenged. Matteo had finally found the courage to tell Sofia the truth. He knew it would be a difficult conversation, but he needed to be honest with himself and with her. So one morning, in a small living room adorned with antiques, he prepared himself for what would be one of the hardest moments of his life. Sofia entered the room with her usual elegant posture, and Matteo knew he could no longer delay. "Sofia, I need to talk to you," said Matteo, his voice low but firm. She observed him for a moment, a hesitant smile on her lips, but her eyes revealed that something was about to fall apart. "Matteo, I don't know what you want to tell me, but I also need to talk to you." Sofia approached, holding his hands, trying to maintain her composure. "We have a future ahead of us, Matteo, a future our families dreamed of for us." Matteo took a deep breath, feeling the crushing weight of generations' expectations on his shoulders. But he couldn't back down. "Sofia, I can't continue with this," he said, gently pulling his hands away. "I met someone and this person made me realize I'm living a life that isn't mine. I don't want a marriage out of obligation, I want a life guided by love." Sofia's face hardened, her previously calm expression turning into a mask of disbelief and pain. For a moment, Matteo thought she would simply walk away, but Sofia was far more resilient and determined than he had imagined. "This is because of that woman, isn't it?" Her voice was sharp. "That Lucia." He tried to calm the situation, but the fire in Sofia's eyes only grew. She stood up suddenly, almost knocking over one of the antique chairs. "You can't just throw everything away for a fleeting passion, Matteo. Not after everything our families did to build this. I won't let this happen." In that moment, Matteo saw a side of Sofia he didn't know, and he realized that she was willing to go far beyond what he had imagined to keep their engagement. That afternoon, Matteo was called to his father's office, and he immediately knew something was wrong. When he entered, he found his father, Patriarch Rosso, with Sofia and her father. The atmosphere in the room was tense, the air almost unbreathable. "Matteo," said his father, in an authoritative and cold tone, Sofia told us about your intentions to break off the engagement. You are a Rosso, and the Rossos do not run away from their duties. Sofia, sitting beside her father, kept her eyes fixed on Matteo, as if she had set up a trap from which he couldn't escape. Her father, a stern man, spoke in a warning tone. Matteo, I know you're going through a difficult time, but there is much more at stake here than just feelings. Our alliance is crucial for both families. He felt cornered. The two most powerful men in his life were imposing their wills, while Sofia remained silent with a calculated look. It was as if his fate was written, and he had no choice. Sofia stood up and approached Matteo, her voice softening into a plea. Matteo, I know you think you're in love with this woman, but she doesn't understand our life, our responsibilities. You can't destroy everything for something so fleeting. Sofia's words and the pressure from the families made Matteo feel as if he were being suffocated. But beneath the pressure and expectations, something in his heart refused to give in. That's when he realized he needed to be stronger than the chains that held him. I know it seems like I'm destroying everything, but what you're asking of me is to destroy myself, said Matteo, with a firmness he didn't know he possessed. I can't do this anymore. His father responded harshly. Matteo, you are making a terrible mistake, he shouted, his voice firm and authoritative. Are you going to throw away our family's future for a fleeting passion? Matteo felt the heat of anger and despair rise in his chest, but something ignited within him, an unshakable courage. I might lose everything, father. But I won't lose myself, Matteo replied, feeling his voice tremble but knowing those were the truest words he had ever spoken in his life. Sofia, realizing she was losing control of the situation, took a drastic step. In a desperate attempt to secure her future, she threatened to expose the story of Matteo and Lucia to the entire town, spreading rumors that would destroy both of their reputations. But Matteo didn't waver. If you think threats will make me back down, then you don't really know me, Sofia, he said, looking at her firmly. I won't live a life of lies. Frustrated and humiliated, Sofia left the room with her father, and Matteo finally saw the light at the end of that dark tunnel. He knew he had hurt Sofia, but he also knew that continuing down that path would betray everything he had discovered about himself. After that harsh confrontation, Matteo ran to the old olive grove, where he and Lucia used to meet. He didn't know if she would be there, but he had to try. When he arrived, he saw Lucia standing, looking at the horizon as if she were waiting for an ending she feared. He approached slowly, and Lucia turned to face him. Matteo paused for a moment, looking at her with a gaze that carried all the emotions of the past few days. I chose you, Lucia, he said, his voice low but full of conviction. Not out of rebellion, not out of defiance, but because I love you and because I can no longer live a life without love. Lucia, with tears in her eyes, stared at him for a moment. She knew what that choice meant for Matteo, what he had faced to get there. Matteo, I was afraid to believe in this, Lucia said, with a hesitant smile. Afraid that this was just a dream. He approached and held her hands, feeling a wave of peace he had never experienced before. This isn't a dream, Lucia. It's the only reality I want to live. They embraced and kissed passionately, and in that moment, the world around them seemed to disappear. Matteo had faced his destiny, defied his traditions, and won the freedom to follow his heart. The two were married in a simple ceremony, surrounded only by the people who truly cared about them. Matteo and Lucia built a new life together, a life guided by love and the freedom to be who they were. And in that small town in Tuscany, the heir of the Rosso family became a symbol of courage for all those who had ever dreamed of defying fate for something greater. Did you enjoy this story? Then don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel to keep up with more exciting stories that make your heart beat faster. Share it with someone you know who loves a romance full of twists and turns, and let us know in the comments what touched you most about Matteo and Lucia's journey. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.